Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up
All that jam.
All That Jam, Quick Hit. Elias Wallace on Otis Stacks.
I remember one time we did a show in Nice, and it was a real wild scene. And we kind of stayed later, and then guys are waking up with other girls and stuff. And the next morning, and in this club, and there's like drugs and everything. And that's when I wrote this other song uh, called "Fashion Drunk," and I kind of wrote it at that time, and I wrote like, I don't know where I ended up last night. I don't know why I can't find a light. I don't know where I left my keys. Was it with you? Were you with me? And so I wanted to explore this idea that I was kind of seeing when we were doing this music and going around all these different places, which is a kind of hedonism that I felt was at some level nihilistic. And so I thought, like, trying to only feel good all the time eventually leads you to feel not much at all. And so that was the kind of, and so then we were going to do that song as a diphonic song, um, and write that out and kind of go in a different direction, less funky, less party hip hop, because diphonics is really funk and hip hop if you think about it, from the sound wise. I had a backbone of hip hop, but it was very funky in the way that it was presented, and so it had a upbeat vibe to it. Uh, but um, but I wanted to move in a different direction, and then Michael came to me at a certain point, and I was thinking of leaving the band, and I was like, yeah, I don't know how much longer I can do this. I was flying back and forth to Europe like a couple times a month sometimes, and I was working a job at the same time, and because I didn't really see music as like a career. I had been offered a couple record deals in the United States, and I had turned them down because they said I was going to be on the road like 200 days a year, and I was like, I got a wife, and I'm about to have a kid. I was like, all the guys that I know that do this for a living used to have a wife and have a kid. I don't want to used to have a wife. I want to have a wife, and I want to be able to have like a family and a retirement and all these kind of things. So I was trying to work a job at the same time, and then I was flying back and forth, and I was like, I don't know if I really do this anymore, especially about something that I don't seem to have very much control over, like the direction of the band. Um, I'm the only American in the band. Everybody else is Danish. At a certain point in the tour, everything is going to switch to Danish. It's going to leave English, and then like I'm listening to French and to Danish, and I can catch some of it, but like you're the odd man out, but you're like one of the front men at the same time. And I was like, I don't know. Is this what I want for myself? And the answer was no, I don't. So, but Michael came to me and said, hey, do you want to do another band? And so I said, well, okay, but only if the writing is 50-50, only if it goes 50-50 both ways. So yeah, that was how Otis Stacks came about.
Okay, I was gonna ask that. That seems right. And when you say Michael, that's Justmike, right? DJ name.
Yep, yep.
Okay,
Hmm.
okay, yeah. I mean that. Like I know online and stuff, and like Spotify, streaming stuff. That Fashion Drunk was huge, and I remember trying to put the pieces together because I'm that person that I'm gonna look and I'm gonna try to figure out who I'm listening to. Like I remember when I first started, I was like, wait, this guy's American? Like I even had to like stop and I was like, that makes sense based on what I'm hearing, but I hadn't realized that for a while. So Otis Stacks, can you talk a little bit about how that process worked between the two of you? Because I'm really fascinated by that.
So I watched this movie called Finding Sugar Man or something like that. Have you ever heard of that? Uh, it's like an interesting movie where there was this guy in Oakland or something like that that did like an album or something, and it never popped in the United States, but it got huge in South Africa. Now I don't know if it's like Spinal Tap, like it's a fake documentary, or if it's a real documentary, but apparently like so then this Sugar Man album was like a big deal, and all these people in South Africa thought it was amazing. So at a certain point, they're like, "Hey, we should bring Sugar Man down to South Africa to do a big show." So then they had to try to find him, and they didn't know where he was, and so then in my mind, I was like, "Oh, that's a really cool idea to build for a band to like." So we could have the idea that like there's this character, and this character um, has done stuff with other soul artists and everything, but he's always like behind the scenes and nobody knows who he is, and he's somewhat mysterious. And so and that would be like Otis Stacks. And so that's what we and so then I had to create a whole character to go with it. So I had like this big mustache, and then I had like vintage clothes, and I would like drink whiskey on stage and stuff like that, and just kind of have a whole persona that would go. Because I mean, people would say that I was a neo soul singer, or I had a bluesy voice. I don't know any of that kind of stuff. Like I didn't listen to like neo soul. I didn't listen to soul music. I didn't listen to blues music. I listened to like hip hop pretty much, like that's all. And maybe like Frank Ocean. Like I was like, Frank Ocean is like genius. This guy's amazing. But other than that, I didn't really like listen to a lot of the other stuff. So uh, we, I just would listen to whatever Michael would give me, and then I would try to write something to it. So I wrote a whole bunch of different ideas, and bounced a bunch of ideas off of whatever his production was. And then I said, "Hey man, here's what we're gonna do. I don't want to do this album from the United States and on the internet. I don't enjoy that very much. I'm going to fly to Copenhagen, and then I'll go to your studio, and then we'll just write them and record them." And so the first Otis Stacks album is 5 days of me just going to Copenhagen and then just writing all the songs. And so that's what we did. Yeah. Just wrote a bunch of songs, and not all of them made the album, but some of them did. So.
And do you still work with? Oh gosh, I think it was maybe a label out in France. Excuse my French, or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what happened um, after Otis Stacks was Justmike and I had kind of a parting of the ways. We're better as friends than as business partners, and so it was at a point where we were either going to not be friends anymore and still work together, or we were going to break apart and then be friends. And so we kind of separated, and then I wanted to do something different, and that I had hit up some friends that I had come across who were producers and creators, and I said, "Would you guys be interested in working with me?" And they were like, "Heck yeah!" So I was like, "Oh, okay, that's great," because I don't have a huge view of myself. For a long time, just knowing that I could do top line, I didn't actually know it was called top line. I was just like, I'm not really a musician. I'm not really that great of a singer. I'm not, there's these different things that I didn't think I was that great at. So I was like, but like I'm okay on stage. I'm not like the best, but it seems to be connecting with people. And so maybe some people said the old label I was at, would sometimes say like that I couldn't do it without the producer that I was working with. Like you can't do it unless you're doing it with. And I was like, well, maybe that's true. It's probably true, but maybe it's not. So maybe I'll try something different. And so I decided to go try something different. And that's what I did. And then I had talked to Tom from Tom Cloutier from Excuse My French. And he was willing to be my manager. And And so I worked with them, and at that point they decided we want to create. They had an investor that was really a big fan of what I did, and said, well, why don't you guys just make a label? And so I'll provide some backing for the label, and and so they created a label, and they put out the product that we already brought to them. So we had a product that we had created with friends, and we said, well, here are our songs, and they said, okay, we'll put those out. And so that's the Walk With You album, and of course I went in a completely different direction. So if you listen to the songs, there are still an element of like the hip hop backbone and and that's because the producers had a experience in hip hop as well. And of course I still rap, but I didn't want to rap anymore. And I just wanted to try new things. So every time I try to do some kind of like, um, kind of endeavor in music, I would like to get pushed, and I'd like to go somewhere different than I'd already been. I don't want to do what I've already done. I don't want to try to say, oh, you guys like this. Well, I'm just going to try to do this. Because again,
Is
I
there
don't
a
think
DJ?
that's what, and this particular one, there was not. There was no DJ in this one. It was just two, three different producers. Jonah Sol in Denmark was a producer, good friend of mine. Another guy named Trolls, and he's now a movie producer, but at the time he was a music producer, but a really good friend. And then S1, who wasn't a good friend, but we had hooked up a few times in Los Angeles when he came out, and just an amazing creative soul. And just amazing to work with in the studio, because he's just like one of those guys, just like he's like a chain smoker, and then he's like, oh, what about this? And then he tries, what about this? Let's try this. And then he'll be like, and he's so amazing because he can actually, usually when you create with somebody, you'll either keep going on that line of creativity until entropy takes place, and then it's like, that's terrible, we just spent 9 hours creating something terrible. Or you have someone like him who goes, yeah, this is not going to work, and then he'll trash it all and not
Yeah.
hold on to it, and then we'll go in a different direction. He was really amazing like that. And so it was really fun to work with these guys and see a completely different creative process with each one of them. And of course my side of the equation is to come up with the melody lines and stuff like that. But Jonah himself is a really amazing singer, and he was always able to help me with background vocals, but also he would say, well, I really liked it when you did this. Can you do that again? But my problem is that, like, I'm not trained in anything, right? I don't have any training in singing or music or anything. So something that might come out, I don't remember it. Some people can, they can sing something and be like, oh yeah, I'll sing what I just heard there, and I'll go back and do that. I can't do that. So that's why we started just putting the recorder on and seeing what happened. But he would remember, and then he would say, when you did it like this, and then I would have to go back and then I would do it like that again. And so it was really, really amazing to work with them and come up with new ideas and new approaches. And that was the last one that I did, and with them. But since that time, I went to Paris, and there were these young French indie electronic guys that I really, really like. And they were fans of mine when they were like late teens, early 20s. And they were like, oh, Elias, Otis Stacks is so amazing. What? Right? And I was like, yeah, that's. And we hung out a few times, and I thought they were great guys. And then I watched their career, and I watched them as they were developing and doing music. And I went to a few of their shows, and I was like, you guys are doing stuff that I'm not doing. They would really build songs up like electronically, and it would get like very big, and it was kind of like in that James Blake universe. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to work with you guys and do something like that. And so the latest one that I did is I flew to Paris, and I was already in Paris that summer, and I said, we're gonna meet for a week. And so we met for a week, and we did 5 songs. Again,
Wow.
just recorded those songs together. And the latest one that I did was with them. It's more in that James Blake type universe.
Hmm.
So if I put out another album, it'll probably be in that indie electronic first. But then after that, I think I'm going to do a whole project that's just acoustic,
Yeah.
completely different, more Americana
Hmm.
kind of vibe. Yeah.
If you are enjoying All That Jam, please like and subscribe to our social media channels at All That Jam Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or visit our website, allthatjampod.com. Make sure to sign up for our email list and tune in every week for new episodes.
Also, look for full interviews on our YouTube channel. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long.